Hey, Walter Sorrells back with another Pops Project of the Month. Today we'll be forging this slim little barbecue blade, focusing on showing some techniques and materials for handle making, including driving home a brass guard. Today we'll be showing off some pretty cool tools and techniques, and we're going to forge a knife while we're at it. As you might expect on Pop's Project of the Month, all the materials we'll be using today come from Pop's Knife Supply. We'll be hand forging the blade from 80 CRV2 and then making the handle from a big old honking block of paper micarta, plus this spectacular piece of stabilized pecan and a skinny little piece of G10 and some brass for the guard. I'll also be using some really interesting and unusual tools that you can find only at Pop's, some of which I make, by the way, including this very simple but extremely useful new tool that we call the tang tapper. You might have seen us using it a few months back with knife maker Walter Sorrells, so in case you didn't catch that one, yeah, we're using it again. All right, let's get cranking.
I'll start by forging the knife. Of course, you can do this project entirely by stock removal if you want, but fire is always the fun option. Now, in the interest of keeping this video to some reasonable length, I'm not focusing on the forging process too much. If you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you've seen me do this a ton of times. This is going to be a relatively slim slicing type blade, something you could actually use in the barbecue pit. It's not just a giant wall hanger like a lot of people forge these days. After forging the preform, we'll get busy on the bevels, the sharp bits of the blade. Now we'll forge in the tang, starting with a guillotine tool to pinch in the step down from the ricasso, then forging out the tang. I'm forging it extra long, then I'll cut off the excess later. I'll also drill a hole now for reasons you'll see in about 5 seconds. Now over to the grinder. You'll notice I'm using this cool tool that I make for the guys at Pop's. Magnets plus a little micarta rod that you can use to seat the blade so the grinder won't throw it like sometimes happens with just plain magnets. Really useful for descaling, tapering tangs, all kinds of stuff. As you can see, that's why I drilled a hole in the tang now and not when I'm finishing up the blade. Once we've got the blade dimensioned and flattened, I'll go ahead and grind the bevels. I'm using Deer Foss ceramic belts. The guys at Pop's like these a lot as a budget-friendly option to things like Norton Blaze. Normally I start with 36 grit belts when I'm roughing, but this blade's pretty close to the dimensions I want, so I'll start at 60 grit and work my way up from there.
Today's video is, of course, sponsored by Pop's Knife Supply. Pop's is your source for knife making tools, many of which you'll see me using today. Steel, yep, belts, sandpaper, wheels, buffing compound, all kinds of other abrasives, absolutely. Plus, of course, all kinds of handle materials like wood, bone, stag, and of course, micarta, which is kind of a Pop's specialty, and the secret sauce at Pop's. All the owners are knife makers themselves. So if you got questions about steel, questions about what kind of belts you want, whatever, just call them, ask them, and they'll get you right on track. popsknife.supplies.
Now we're ready for heat treating. But first we'll take a pause because we're getting to the meat of the project, which is the handle. To do that, we'll cut up the components, micarta, G10, and the spalted pecan. Like I said, this is stabilized, meaning that it's been impregnated with resin at very high pressures, making it less likely to swell, crack, shrink, and making it more resistant to liquids. I'll cut these on the bandsaw, then use a pair of hand shears to cut this extremely thin G10 spacer material. In retrospect, this stuff doesn't show up all that well. I would actually use thicker material, which Pops also sells. Experiment didn't work that great. Okay, over to the disc grinder. Now, this may look like a lot of power tools, but if you're just getting started and you don't have tons and tons of gear, this is all stuff you could do with a handsaw and sandpaper held on a hard surface like a piece of glass. Never let yourself be chased off from getting involved with knife making just because you see some guy on YouTube doing it with a fancy machine. There's almost always a hand method that works just as well, if a little slower. Now we've got this all lined up and the face is nice and flat so that when we put them together, we have a clean, straight piece of material with a square face at the end and no gaps between the segments. So let's glue up our multi-part handle. A little CA glue, pro tip, when you clamp diagonal pieces like we're doing here, you want to clamp them downward to your table. If you just clamp from the ends, this will happen. Takes a little fussing to make sure you've got all the surfaces touching with a little pressure. You don't want them cockeyed, you don't want to leave gaps. Now back to the blade. I'll coat the blade with some Nuclear anti-scale. This is not required, but it makes everything easier later on. Less pitting and scale to clean up. Again, all this stuff can be found at Pops. Into the oven at 1525 Fahrenheit. Now you can do this in the forge too, but a heat treating oven gives you a little more control. Into the oil, in this case Parks 50, those slower quenching oils would work just fine with 80 CRV2. After double tempering at 350 Fahrenheit, it's back to the grinder to pretty up the blade. Now, finishing a blade like this gives you a ton of options, from rough belt finishes to fine belt finishes to hand sanded to mirror polished, surface conditioning belts. Really, it's just dealer's choice. It's what you like. I'll finish up using one of my favorite approaches, 3M Gator Grit. In this case, I'm finishing with A100 belts, which gives a fairly uniform finish. Now, before I finalize my finish, I'm going to grind the junction between the guard and the tang. It's got to be super flat, so a filing guide is a key piece of kit here. In this case, I'm using a Nordic Edge guide with carbide faces. You want to grind absolutely all the way to the carbide. This process can also be done with a file, by the way. Either way, the point is that you want these two surfaces to be both dead flat and perfectly parallel to each other. If you don't do that, you'll end up with gaps between the guard and the blade. Now I'll touch up the final grind to make sure everything south of the tang is nice and clean. I'm also checking to make sure the tang tapers away from the ricasso and that the thickness of the blade at the ricasso is consistent from side to side. If you're hand fitting and filing everything to shape, that's not so important, but if you're milling it the way I'm doing it, it's got to be flat. Another key point, once you get to your final ground surface, any rust that it picks up is there for good. So you want A, to protect the blade with some oil, B, wrap it with tape or paper towels or maybe both, and C, get busy with the handle as soon as possible. So I'm heading right back to the bench to get cranking on the handle. We'll start by making the brass guard. Now I'll be milling out the slot, but you can get a pre-slotted guard or go old school, drill a series of holes, and then use a jeweler's saw and a file to file that slot out. Super fun process. Takes forever, but it works if you're very meticulous. Now, 2 key points. First, the slot has to be milled a few thousandths of an inch smaller than the thickness of the blade at the ricasso. That's part of our technique here. Second, the ricasso on the knife needs to be consistent in thickness, as I said earlier. So that was something I adjusted during grinding. There, nice clean slot, couple thousandths of an inch narrower than the ricasso. Now, this always still requires a little bit of fussing to get it right, and you might have to relieve the interior with a file and so on, but still, this is a much simpler process than some of the older guard fitting methods that you may have seen me use in other videos. Before we finish up, I'll also want to finish the front face of the guard. A little sandpaper, 800 grit in this case, and then a little buffing, and it's gleaming and purty. Now I'll start working on the handle. Basically, just drilling it out. Now obviously I have to go deep enough to allow the tang to go all the way in. Here I'm using a 3/16 inch drill, hanging it out basically as far as I can. That'll allow me to go pretty deep inside that handle. Incidentally, by jogging the drill up and down and kind of running it back and forth and stuff, you can actually clean out most of the material in there. But once I'm done, a broach like this is really handy to help clean it out. Don't feel like ponying up for this tool? A broken hacksaw blade will work too. So, we've reached the point I alluded to earlier. I'm going to reduce the length of the tang about 1 inch, and that's going to allow it to slip all the way into that handle. Once these holes are drilled, I'll fit up the guard. As I said earlier, the thickness of the tang is greater than the width of the guard slot. This is so that when we drive that guard down onto the slot, forcing open the mouth of the guard just the slightest bit, making a zero play, zero gap junction between the two. How do we do that? That's where this tool comes in. Like I mentioned earlier, I actually produced this for Pops. Now you can make one yourself, but it's a pretty reasonably priced item. Anyway, here's how it works. Just place the guard over the tang, then drive it down with a hammer. I'm putting it in a vise to keep it stable and then driving the point into some HDPE plastic because it will slip in the vise. And there you go, perfect guard seam. Now we'll just glue up the handle. Now I'm using a micarta cross pin to hold it in there, so at this point we'll need to drill the hole for it. You can see how I've got it set up here. I'll clamp everything up, get the drill lined up exactly with that hole, slip it back on, and then drill the hole. Now honestly, you don't need this pin, it's really a belt and suspenders thing, but I like that extra security. Now once you're getting ready to assemble everything, you 100% want to make sure to test fit everything. If there's a gap between the handle and the guard because you drilled that hole a little bit off, or you can't fit the pin through, either way, a little bit of filing in the hole is going to fix everything. A little cleanup, you always want super clean joints. If there's any crud or grease or oil in there, it'll weaken that bond. Now I'll slap it all together with epoxy. Again, this is slow cure epoxy. That 5-minute Home Depot epoxy is a recipe for disaster. I've mocked up a little profile for my handle in Fusion 360, but there's really no reason for you to do that. That just happens to be the way I wanted to do this one. Next, it's back to the grinder to profile the handle. The handle is a big part of the personality of the blade. Now obviously I'm doing this with a grinder, but you can do this whole thing with files and rasps if you don't have a grinder. I've showed that in quite a few videos, but let's face it, this is easier. Notice I'm using small wheels on the grinder to pick up nice clean radii for these internal features of the handle, like the back side of the guard. Once I got things roughed out with 36 grit, I'll run up to higher grits. Then I'll turn to my slack belt using 220 grit and some nice scallop belts, which are great on these interior curves. Whether you go scalloped or not, you always want to use flexible J weight belts instead of the harder X or Y weight belts, which will dig into your handle. At this point, you can finish it by hand, rub in some oil, polish it on a buffer, whatever look appeals to you. Notice that I'm taping off each section of the handle as I turn to the buffer. I'm actually buffing and polishing each section separately. Several reasons for this. First, the differing hardness of the materials makes it easy to cause dips at the transition when you're hand sanding. But more importantly, buffing brass creates a lot of nasty black stuff that you don't want to get all over the other materials.
And here it is in its final shape. Now, by the way, if you want to pick up this exact blade for yourself, you know, as a little memento of this project, there's only this one. I didn't make a ton of them. You can grab it off my website, tacticsarmory.com. When it's gone, it's gone. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this project. Maybe it gave you some ideas of ways you can spiff up your handles. Also, I keep finding new uses for all these tools that I've been demonstrating. So again, if you want to pick any of them up, check out Pop's website for details. All right, guys, thanks for watching and keep on making those knives.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and make sure that you click on that bell so you get notified of all the latest videos. Want to buy a knife from me? Check out my modern blades at tacticsarmory.com. Digging the channel? You can support our video making efforts on Patreon. You know, I've been banging away on these videos for like 10 years, so I hope you'll show some love for all that hard work. Link in the cards and descriptions. Finally, if you're interested in making Japanese swords, check out my full line of Japanese sword videos where I show how to forge Japanese swords as well as how to polish them and how to make fittings, handles, and scabbards. Walter Sorrells Blades.com.